going to this article that Paul Joseph Watson has up on Infowars.com, University of New Hampshire says using the word American is defensive, but not just that word. They have a long list: obese, normal, mothering, fathering, senior citizen, homosexual, illegal alien. Those are all discouraged. You know, Paul, I'd like to see if they could come up with a euphemism for bald so I didn't have to feel so bad about losing my hair. You know, I still wouldn't grow hair, but I could feel better about it maybe for a little while. What do you think?
Well, that's partly what it's about, David. It's about this cult of victimhood, where, you know, instead of facing up to people's problems, like, you know, obese, for example, you've got the whole fat pride movement, which tries to take obesity, of course, which is incredibly unhealthy and should not be encouraged, and turn it into this social justice warrior movement. So this is a bias-free language guide posted on the official University of New Hampshire website. And to his credit, the University of New Hampshire president has come out, even he has come out and basically said this is ridiculous. Of course, they say using the word American is offensive because it's not inclusive of people from South America. All those other examples you mentioned, normal, mothering, fathering, homosexual, illegal alien, senior citizens, they're all offensive and they're all to be discouraged. But what this is about is, again, mainstreaming lunacy. People pick holes in some articles that I write and say, well, this is just some idiots, some extreme leftist radicals on Twitter or Tumblr that are coming out with this. But it's not. As we saw with the previous article from the University of Wisconsin, where they said that complimenting people of color or saying, for example, that an Asian person is good at maths is a racial microaggression. And this is coming from the universities. This is what faculty and students are being taught. So it's not just some extreme crazy radicals on the internet. This is what the next generation is learning. This is what is being mainstreamed right now in America at the college level.
Absolutely, Paul. You know, when I look at this, when we look at language control, that's really about population control. Just like we talk about gun control, that's really population control. This is about intimidating people, isn't it, Paul? It's about creating a climate of intimidation. And it's also, when we look at political terms, I mean, that's a huge political aspect right there. But when we look at some of these political terms, they're really seizing the high ground of political debate, because if you can define the terms, you can define the argument. So there's multiple aspects of this that we should all be very worried about. But I think the key thing to me in looking at all this, at first glance, it looks silly, it looks hypersensitive, it looks politically correct, but it really is a form of control and intimidation.
Yeah, it's about changing the definition of words and phrases. It's not about being sensitive to people and not wanting to offend people. Look at the examples. You know, they say calling people illegal aliens is politically incorrect, offensive, but then what do they suggest it's replaced with? Quote, person seeking asylum or refugee. So, of course, that completely eliminates all the pejorative context from illegal immigrant, somebody breaking the law to illegally enter the country, and turns them into some kind of political refugee. The same with other examples. As I said, you know, they say replace obese or overweight with, quote, people of size. So again, that completely eliminates the context that being obese is a bad thing and not something that should be accepted or encouraged. Of course, we're not going to bully people and call them names because they're overweight. But the whole fat pride movement that this is attached to actually encourages body positivity for grossly obese people. So it's actually harming their health, making them more likely to succumb to terminal illnesses. They also talk about ciscentrism, which, quote, includes the lack of gender-neutral restrooms, locker rooms, and residences at the university. So again, it's all about creating this cult of victimhood, where everybody's a special little snowflake, and your free speech, your language, the very words that you use need to be curtailed, even at university, which is supposed to be a bastion of free speech, where open, free discussion is encouraged. Now, in many universities in America, it's the opposite. You know, they have safe spaces when dissident feminists like Christina Hoff Sommers go to a university to do a talk about how insane third wave feminism is. These students have to escape to these safe spaces where they won't come in contact with any of the talking points that she brings to her presentation. So instead of being about open and free discussion, which is what universities were about in the past and should be about. It's about curtailing free speech. It's about censorious programs that dictate that this kind of language is some kind of thought crime, and even to utter it is to be offensive and politically incorrect.
Yeah, it's been that way at university for a long time. I'm pretty old. I went when I was getting my electrical engineering degree. I had to be very careful about the classes, the professors that I had, because there were uh, all these Marxists basically that were trying to harass and intimidate you to use their classes as a tool of social control, as a tool of manipulation. But of course, now all the guilt tripping about white privilege has become systemic throughout the universities, all of them pretty much. And of course, the MTV program that we covered before. I really hate to see this kind of cultural Marxism. Again, as I said, it's just a form of control and intimidation. And it's absolutely outrageous. It's also ridiculous when we look at things like obese or overweight being replaced by the euphemism "people of size." People of size. Of what size? That's the issue, I guess, right, Paul?
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the MTV thing again. A lot of actual liberals, though, you'll find now are coming out and rebelling against this because they see that basically the craziest people have seized control of the dialogue, of the narrative, and now they're in these key positions of power at universities, in the media. Not only did we have the MTV White Privilege show, which aired about a week ago now, telling white people that they should be ashamed, for example, about what happened to the Native Americans, which they have no connection to whatsoever. Despite the fact that, all the Native American tribes were killing each other, that doesn't matter. It's white people that are evil. And then after that, they put out another video, which again touched upon the University of Wisconsin microaggressions, things like, saying that you liked black culture was racist, but also not liking black culture was racist. So basically, whatever you say, you're racist. If you're white, you're born a racist, which is basically what these social justice warriors believe. And then you have to live your entire life as an act of apology simply for your skin color, which is, of course, inherently racist. So this is coming out at the educational level. It's coming out at the media level. And, if you're active on Twitter, as I am, you know that these people have seized control of the narrative in many areas of political discussion on Twitter. And that's why it's a big threat, because they are controlling the narrative to a great extent. And if you're not embroiled in that on a day-to-day basis, as I am, then it's easy to dismiss it as just some radical extremists on Tumblr or whatever. But, this has gone really far now with all these different free speech guides being given to students and faculty members at universities, telling them what they can and can't say, and something that might offend the precious little snowflakes. And it is a threat to free speech, and it's a growing one.
And joining us now is Paul Joseph Watson from the UK. We've been talking about the weaponization of our language that is taking place primarily in the universities. That's where they're beginning all of this. The preoccupation with white privilege, now it's taken to an absurd level at the University of New Hampshire, where they have a bias-free language guide where they're basically redefining everything. But understand that behind this is not just about intimidation of people. That's a big part of it. They talk about microaggression. Really, they're the ones being aggressive. But language control, like gun control, like transportation control, is people control. That's fundamentally what this is about. This is what these Marxists are really trying to do, as well as defining the terms of the debate and seizing the high ground by defining those terms. Going back to Paul Joseph Watson, Paul, break this down some more for us.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's about hijacking the terms that we all use on a day-to-day basis and either saying that now they mean something else or that they're racist and politically incorrect. I mean, Alex talks about it often. They stop using the term brown bags up in Seattle because that could be considered racist. And every single day I post examples from people who are going to these universities. They post stuff on Twitter like, if you order beef well done, then that's racist because there's a history of white people giving spoiled beef to African American slaves. And it's that kind of insanity that now dominates much of the narrative. And it's also now it's took firm grasp in universities. And that's why we're seeing more of this come out every single week now.
Yeah, it also underscores, as we said before, how silly and irrelevant the universities have become, hasn't it? I would not call them institutions of higher learning for most cases. I don't think people need to go into massive debt to get most of these degrees. I mean, even for technical degrees or law degrees or doctorate degrees, I mean, that's the only way you can get into those fields. Nevertheless, it's starting to get to the point where it doesn't really pay.
Well, no, and then they complain about, the gender pay gap while taking gender studies degrees that are no good to anyone. You're not going to get a job out of it. So, it's a vicious circle.
I wanted to bring Weldon Henson in here briefly because we have a great sponsor. Boy, I've sure been enjoying the firearms that I've gotten from them. hdfirearms.com. That's Head Down Firearms. They have super high quality 223s, 308, you name it. It's called 556 technically in the 223 that are guns that would be $3,000 or $1,500. Guns that would be $1,500 or $900. They've got a bunch of super high quality customization services, holsters, accessories. Weldon Henson, tell us about some of the great accessories available at hdfirearms.com.
Well, the important thing to remember is that if you're not in the market to buy a brand new rifle, you have an AR-15, you have an AR-10 platform, 308 rifle. They've got everything you need to upgrade it. Buy a new part, buy a new trigger, buy a new muzzle brake, buy a new handrail. It's all an upgrade for your rifle because these are all superior top-of-the-line quality products made in America.
Tell folks about their low-profile series.
Well, this is an important thing to have. This is untraceable. Anybody can get this kit right here. You don't have to go through a federal firearms license place. You can have it shipped right to your house.
This is what the traders have been trying to shut down.
Absolutely. So you basically have everything you need besides a lower receiver because that's what's traceable, that's what's serialized, and that's what the federal government's after. But you can get this right here. Get your own lower receiver any way you want. There's different programs. All you got to do is your own research, and you can find out how to get a lower receiver so that you can put it on this. Maybe you already have a lower receiver from an AR from way back that you just don't quite use anymore. It's old, something like that. You can throw it on this. You basically have a brand new rifle, and you saved money by putting it together yourself and buying this kit right here, which is cheaper than the actual rifle.
And they've got the highest quality barrels, the highest quality triggers. We're not just saying that. Go look at the third-party reviews. Tell them about the new rifle they're producing that's getting amazing reviews. And then I just got one, this 308.
Yes, that is very...
Arcadius.
Arcadius. That's very exciting. They just came out with their own line of AR-10 platforms, which is basically an AR-15, but instead of it being a 5.56, it shoots a 308 round, which I know you personally like shooting a 308.
I like them both. I mean, just to be clear, they've always, for years, been making this for the big manufacturers, the high end. They're just now not private labeling. They're putting out their own guns.
Yes. Well, the one they sent you, I'm actually jealous of. It's a beautiful gun. It's set up and configured for long-range shooting, marksmanship type things.
Just the scope alone is something to snuggle with.
Yeah, it's a Vortex 4x16 scope, which you can get at Head Down as well, their distributor. And I think things for people to remember is that if you want a 308, you don't have to get the 18-inch barrel. You don't have to get the 22-inch barrel. You don't have to get it set up for marksmanship. You can get one with a 16-inch barrel that's set up for more of an assault weapon type, configuration. So anything you want, people just call Head Down. You can get anything you want made there, and any configuration you might want on your rifle. They're able to do that, and they have 100% perfect customer service ratings there.
Bottom line, it's not just firearms, a ton of accessories, very affordable, and it supports the InfoWar. If you're not shopping at hdfirearms.com, you're not helping the InfoWar. I mean, this is a win-win. Thank you all for your support. Check them out today. Thank you, Weldon.